We're back, baby. You thought you lost me? You didn't lose me. I'm right here. I've been here the whole time.
We could literally watch Kristen chain smoke cigarettes for freaking hours.
Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I hope you are ready. This is going to be multiple parts. I'm going to try to do 2, but I think I might possibly have to do 3 because I just literally realized that Vanderpump Rules season 4 has 23 episodes including the reunions. So we have a lot of ground to cover with this particular season. And I'm only 8 episodes in of rewatching for like the 700th time. And I completely forgot how much is going on. So, welcome back. My name is Sam. Nice to meet you. I'm your internet bestie that talks about reality TV and just anything that's going on the internet right now. And Vanderpump Rules, if you are new to my channel, is my love language secret obsession, okay? Now, this season of the current season, season 11, I am not watching because I am at this point boycotting the stupidity. And the stupidity was fun at one time, but now it's like toxic, sick, and gross, and no one's growing up. You know, when you're in your early 20s and you're doing dumb shit, it's one thing, but when you're in your 40s doing dumb shit, it's a whole different conversation, especially when you're a man continuing to perpetuate dumb shit, okay? But I'm in the know. I'm in the know. I'm on the TikTok, I'm on the Instagram, I'm doing it all. Now listen, the background. If you notice this stuff right here, we're renovating, okay? My husband is putting in new shelving, so we're renovating, having a little glam moment, okay? So don't pay attention. Also, when has my background ever been beautiful and wonderful? Never has, and honestly, it probably never will. So here we go. How I do my rewatch recaps of my videos is that I do it by storylines. So I don't do it by chronological order of like the television show of like episode 1 to episode whatever. No. If you want to get like deep and nitty gritty and get the itty bitty details, that's on you and you can go watch the television show, which I highly recommend. But this, if you just want like a quick synopsis, okay, and quick I mean like an hour maybe or more, that's where you come. You come here because we go storyline by storyline. And this is what I have up to episode 8, okay, of Vanderpump Rules season 4. I can't even express. Okay, so let's begin. So we start from season 3, what we know from season 3 going into season 4. Okay, so Scheana and Shay got married. There was a wedding. We had that whole situation happen. Katie gives Schwartz an ultimatum because he's dragging his feet on what he wants to do in their relationship. He tried to convince her, like, he's committed by getting her a dog. It's bullshit. Everybody knows it. Spoiler alert. They should have never gotten married because they ended up getting divorced. There's a lot of spoilers, okay? I'm just gonna let you know there's some spoilers. But again, I can't emphasize enough. It doesn't matter how many spoilers I tell you. You will only truly understand the gravity of the craziness if you invest time into watching the show, because I can't even explain to you how fabulous this show is in its inception. It's pretty incredible, okay? And seasons 1 through, I'm going to say even 5, are probably like the best seasons ever of Vanderpump Rules, like ever. They're just peak reality television, in my opinion. All right, so we opened Pump Up, and that was Lisa Vanderpump's main focus. This season, she's focusing on Sir. And by focusing on Sir, I genuinely don't think she gives a shit about these restaurants. I don't even know if she honestly is there without a camera crew near her. That's just my opinion, though. Sandoval and Ariana live together. Kristen and James are still together dating, but in this season, you'll see that they have a lot of issues. We get into Scheana and Shay's marital issues, which are so deep and so complex that, like, this crew didn't even know what the hell to do with it. Stassi has left the show and decided to move to New York with her ratchet-ass, awful, heterosexual, sports-loving, probably doesn't wipe his ass, fucking white panty-running boyfriend who's a loser. Patrick is a loser. I cannot emphasize enough. He is the worst boyfriend that Stassi has ever had on this television show. We won't see him, I think, until the following season. I think we see him in season 5, maybe 6. We see him a little bit down the line. Katie and Schwartz already talked about that. And then Jax was like dating half of, California and half of like, West Hollywood. And in this season, we see him committing to who we now know, which is Brittany. We love Brittany. And if you hear me talking like this, it's because I'm talking about Brittany, okay? And Brittany Cartwright, she is a Southern belle, and you need to know that, okay? So here are the overall themes that we're going to be talking about throughout the show. And I'm just going to go theme by theme, okay? And that's like storyline by storyline. And that's how I like to do it, because I feel like I work better on these concentrated topics instead of going episode through episode. It makes my ADHD like want to blow up. Okay, so one of the most iconic Vanderpump Rules scenes we will talk about is James and Lala and Lauren at the Pride Parade. So if you don't know, if you haven't watched all my recaps, I'll put a playlist right here. Go watch all of my recaps, okay? And from season 1 till now. And so every single season of Vanderpump Rules, up until like, I think 2020, they did Pride episodes where they would have the cast either be in a parade or they would be at the restaurant, like doing a bunch of stuff. And they always did Pride. Like that was a Vanderpump Rules staple every season. They always filmed in the summertime. So that was a huge thing in West Hollywood that would go and do that. So this Pride episode was a shit show, was insane, and it was iconic, just absolutely wonderful. Our next scene we'll talk about is Sandoval leaving Ariana on her birthday. This was a big topic too. This is something that foreshadowed a lot of the bullshit that they ended up going with in season 10, going into season 11. Next we have Schwartz and Katie and their relationship, and we'll talk about a bunch of stuff, them getting engaged and all that shit. Eventually in the next video that I'll talk more about Stassi's comeback. And also I'll talk about Schwartz and Katie's actual engagement. Like in the first 8 episodes, they don't get engaged, but they do eventually. So spoiler on that. We talk about the beginning of Jax and Brittany's relationship, and we'll get more into that in later on episodes. Jax's nose jobs. Jax being literally right about all these relationships but can't figure his own shit out. That's pretty hilarious. We'll obviously talk about James and Kristen and they're fighting and they're breaking up, and that's like basically the entire first half of the season. We talk about Lala, who's new to the show. This is Lala's first season on the show, and again, her and James, they get together. They are rats. Okay, the first couple seasons, like Lala and James were basically just causing chaos every turn that they had the opportunity to do. The two of them were, like, I think about other reality TV shows, and when they have like new cast members pop in and they try to make them something, like you see that a lot in Real Housewives, where you'll see like one-hit wonders pop in and out. Lala and James, I think, might be the best additions to a reality TV show in a very, very, very long time. It was like they were meant to be on the show the whole time. James was always around. James has always been in the background. You can see him in previous seasons in the background participating in stuff. He's a little Twinkie. You can see him in some surf photo shoot in like I think season 3 or 2 or something like that. So James has kind of always been around. And then Lala came out of basically nowhere, and she's incredible to the show. Like this season 11, I was a Lala apologist until season 11. We talk about Scheana and Shay's problems, which is a huge portion of the first 8 episodes of the season. We talk about Scheana and wanting to be friends with everybody, and how that continues to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and she just can't stop herself from wanting to be friends with everybody. And it's to her own detriment, and she still doesn't get it. Tom and Tom try to become businessmen, and it's the most cringy shit you'll ever see in your life. And then I just have a bunch of random thoughts that I put down in the first 8 episodes that I was like, I don't know where this category, like I don't know where this fits into the different categories I have, but I have to talk about it, because if I don't talk about it, I might explode. Like these are just random thoughts that popped into my head. So every once in a while I'm going to throw a random thought at you so you guys can like eat that up with me. All right. So let's start out with let's go with the biggest storyline throughout the first 8 episodes. And that is honestly James and Kristen. James and Kristen have probably the biggest storyline of the entire season. It's their relationship, and then getting to a point now where Kristen is really focusing heavily on James's drinking, which is hilarious and funny because the way that the show paints it and the way Kristen likes to paint it, she likes to paint it as if James just drank his face off, was this horrible human being, and then that Kristen was this sober beauty queen that just never did anything and was just like a Southern belle, and like I never drank, I never did anything wrong, and James was just so horrible. Now, when it comes to my opinion, allegedly, only my thoughts and opinions about James and Kristen's relationship, I think they were both emotionally abusive, for damn sure emotionally abusive. Physically, not sure, but I could see it. Obviously, we have seen it. We've seen Kristen sock James in the face. So we know there was physical altercations within their relationship, okay? So we know about that. And then the rest of it, I don't live in a world in my head where Kristen was the bad guy or James was the bad guy. It's not black and white. Like, they're both the bad guy. They're both toxic people, and they shouldn't be together. Does that make sense? Like, I just don't live in a world where, like, one person was worse than the other. They're both not good people doing not good things to each other, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. But the entire season, Kristen tries so hard to paint that James was, like, the only bad person doing only the bad things. Meanwhile, Kristen's being crazy over here doing crazy things as well. It's wild. So we start off with Kristen being very concerned about James's drinking, but Kristen has been showing up drunk to places causing a mess. So, like, within the first episode, I'm not joking, you guys, the first 5 minutes of the episode, we're already having a discussion about it. We're already having a discussion about how James has been DJing over at Pump, and he's been having a great time. He has, like, his own little, like, residency, whatever the hell you want to call it. And he's been DJing over there, having a good time, but Kristen will come over with her friends, hammered out of her mind. She'll come over super drunk, day drinking all day, and then she'll come over, she'll cause a little fuss, cause a little stir, and then her and James will get in a fight, and then, like, it'll be a whole thing. It'll be telling people to F this, F that, blah, 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 blah. So Kristen's part of the problem. And the thing that makes me laugh about Kristen is Kristen, like, season after season after season that she's on, like, I think she was on 8 seasons of the show, and then obviously you can find her now on The Valley. She tries so hard to convince the audience, like, I've changed, I'm different, I don't do these things anymore, like, I'm an empath, like, I'm a good person. Let's show the audience. Like, I don't see it, but maybe somebody else has. Kristen is showing up to events, getting drunk, causing issues. Kristen and James are constantly verbally abusing each other, whether that's in parking lots, whether that is in the restaurants, whether that's in the apartments that they live in back and forth, whether that's at other people's restaurants, group settings, doesn't matter. They are just constantly berating each other, calling each other horrible things. James's fun little catchphrase is slut. He likes to call every woman a slut. That's his favorite little catchphrase. He's a slut. You're a slut. Slutty slut, slut. Everybody's a slut, okay? If you have a vagina, you're a slut, basically, according to James's freaky little mind. Kristen says that she's in therapy, and she has her own t-shirt line. And it's like, oh my God, is it called James May? Is that what it's called? I think it's still around too. I genuinely don't know how Kristen made money from season 8 to The Valley. There's, like, what, 4 or 5 years where no clue how she was making money. Like, when her and Stassi and Jax basically got fired from the show, Stassi made money off of her podcast and endorsement deals eventually because she, like, basically was like, I did a bad thing, I'm horrible, and obviously she's a white woman, so there's that too. And so she got through that. Jax basically got through it because of Brittany. Brittany got all the deals, made a bunch of money, did the whole Weight Watchers, I think, or Jenny Craig or whatever, made that money, and then eventually that got him some endorsement deals, and he was good to go, and he did some sponsorships and shit. But Kristen, I'm like, the t-shirt line is not making her money, like that type of money, you know what I'm saying? So, and we all know from The Valley that she's had a couple boyfriends, and one of her boyfriends was a rich guy and took care of her a lot. It's just so interesting. Kristen's like an anomaly to me. Kristen truly is an anomaly to me. So Kristen has been friends with everyone, but now James is starting to become friends with everybody, and that's kind of like ostracizing Kristen, basically. Like, Kristen is the problem, and everybody's like, James, like, Kristen's the issue, you should get away from Kristen, she's causing trouble, she's causing havoc, it's a disaster, like, just stay away from her. And Kristen's like, basically victimizing herself and being like, well, you know, this person did this and this person did this and this person did that, but, like, I'm always the bad guy, I'm always the one that's fucked up, I'm always the one that's the worst person on the planet. And it's like, well, you know, yeah, I mean, I guess with Kristen is just like the most obvious pain in the ass psychopath compared to the rest of them. They kind of have, like, these redeemable qualities, whereas, like, Kristen, like, really doesn't. Like, her toxicity just spews all over the land. It just never stops. Her toxicity and disgusting, horrible behavior just is never stops. She's like full throttle white knuckling to the ends of the earth with her opinions, thoughts, conspiracy theories, and all this shit. And what's crazy though, I'm gonna say what is crazy though, is that Kristen's usually right about her little conspiracies, which we'll get to in just a minute. So Kristen, like even like the first party they have, we go to a party for Scheana, because again, the show's never about Scheana according to current day Scheana. It's like, girl, every season was about you. What are you flipping talking about? So the first episode of the season, they have a decades party for Scheana's birthday, and Kristen doesn't get invited, but Kristen decides that she's gonna dress up, show up, pretends that she didn't know it was a decade party, which I'm like, bullshit. You definitely knew it was a decade party because your boyfriend's at the party, so you knew it was a decade party. She doesn't care. She shows up in a dress with her tits out, happy as can be, living her best life, being like, I wasn't invited, but I'm here. Shows up, starts pushing and bugging James, and it's like, why are you drinking? You shouldn't be drinking. Why are you drinking? You shouldn't be drinking. Stop drinking. Then anytime a camera is around her, she tries to find somebody around, like Lisa's son. Like, how many drinks has he had? He shouldn't have that many drinks. Is he drinking that much? He shouldn't be drinking. Why is he drinking? He shouldn't be drinking. Meanwhile, it's like, yo, Kristen, no, you shouldn't be drinking. Not just James. You also should lay off the bottle as well. Every scene we see you in, you have a bottle of wine. You're showing up to restaurants drinking whole bottles of wine. It's not just James, sweetheart. Like, it's the both of you need to stop drinking and need to never sip a sip of alcohol ever again. So in the first episode, this is all, like, you guys, this information was like basically the first episode. That's what's psychotic about Vanderpump Rules, is like they are balls to the wall every single episode back in the day. It wasn't like, here's a flop episode, here's a good one, here's some more flop. No. Every episode is balls to the wall. Okay, that's why I have to do the breakdowns of storylines, because if I do it meticulously every episode, we would never end. It would never end because the storylines are so crazy and so wild and so intertwined with each other. It's just too much. It's overwhelming, okay? Throughout the season, there's a conversation about James cheating. There's a conversation about James with multiple different women on the show. Lala being one of the big ones. Then there's two other girls that they talk about. I'm pretty sure there's even another one towards the end of the season. Jenna, who, if you know who Jenna is actually friends with Scheana. And Jenna also does exercise, fitness classes, instruction stuff with Brock. And everybody's watched the two of them together on social media and is like, Jenna, Brock? That's been a whole thing that Scheana's even had to talk about. Scheana's had to even like outspokenly be like, no, nothing's going on. Y'all need to relax. But like Jenna was doing shady shit from the beginning, okay? So Jenna supposedly was one of Kristen's friends. So there's the party, the birthday party for Scheana. They're all drunk, they're all getting hammered, and James is getting like intoxicated. I'm talking like balls to the wall. The hangover you're gonna have is like vomiting the whole shebang, okay? So James gets absolutely hammered, sloppy, and he goes up to Jenna and is like, you're so sexy, but in a British accent. And they end up, Kristen gets like pissed off and is like, I'm not dealing with him, you guys can deal with him. Everybody's like, James, calm down, like what's going on? And so they all leave. Well, Jenna and James leave in an Uber together. And Kristen finds out that this happened. And in true Kristen Doty fashion, doesn't let it go. She has to have emails, security, social security numbers, background checks done on everybody, and basically goes through James's email and finds about the Uber ride and sees that James and Jenna got in the Uber at 3 a.m. and went to Jenna's house. Then James called an Uber home at 6 a.m., which means he slept over. Okay? He slept over. And he tries to pull it off when him and Kristen talk about it. He tries to pull it off that like, oh yeah, I just tried to take a shit off and like, we made out, but like nothing else happened. And Kristen's like, so you took her shirt off and then nothing else happened from that. It's like, no, that's just all it was. Like I couldn't go through with it. I couldn't do it, babe. It's like, you couldn't do what? You took her shirt off And you made out with her, so you could do that. Why couldn't you do the rest? Like, oh, couldn't do, babe. I couldn't do it. It's like, liar, liar, asshole on fire. You're so full of shit. He's such a little fucking shit. So Kristen and James end up like going back and forth all season about, are they going to break up? Or are they not going to break up? They end up breaking up. But the first time he's like, oh, babe, I love you so much. I love you so much. And like whispers in her face and like gets all up and she's like crying. She's like, I just love you. And I just want to get like the best for you. And like, I just see you going on this like bad thing. And like, I don't want that to happen for you. And he's like, oh no, babe, I love you so much, babe. It's fine. Yeah, I love you, babe. And it's like, ooh, stop it. And then what's crazy is that when you cut to the diary room, James literally is talking to the producers and is like, me and Jenna were definitely boning. It's like, so you guys had sex. You're full of shit. The fact that Jenna, because like, I'm going to assume Jenna's the same age around Kristen. And it's just so crazy to me. Like, Jenna looks like a full-blown adult and like James looks like a little like teenage child, little boy. It's just like, Jenna, what? Like, no offense, but like back in the day, James, like, who is having sex with this man? I'm trying to understand, like, how low of a self-esteem do you have to have sex with James Kennedy? I just don't understand. Like, these are full-grown women doing this. Not like little teeny bopper teenager girls. Not like 20-year-olds like Allie, like his current girlfriend. No, we're talking about like full-blown adult women in their 30s trying to bone a 20-something-year-old who's just like a little twink thing. It's just, I would have never done that with James. Not at the time. Now, current day James, he's looking really good. He's looking a little thicker, looking a little fit. I'm just saying. And we got to go back and forth about like James and Kristen and their relationship and if Kristen's ever cheated on James. And so James is convinced that Kristen has cheated on him. She went to, where did she go? She went to Denver? She went to Colorado? Michigan? She went somewhere. And he was convinced that he cheated on her because her phone was off for a long period of time. And her excuse was, oh, my phone died. I didn't have a charger. It's like, girl, I think Kristen definitely cheated on James because Kristen cheated on Sandoval. Everybody wants to like, it's not an excuse for the things that Sandoval did to Kristen. But at the same time, it's like, you're both are cheating on each other. It wasn't like one of you was just doing all the cheating at like with Tom and Ariana, where Tom's the only one being an asshole and being a piece of shit. Like, no. Kristen was also being absolutely vile to Tom Sandoval as well. The only difference in this situation is there is no difference, and James and Kristen are both absolutely horrible to each other as well. I don't doubt that Kristen probably did cheat on James. I don't know, I live in reality. That's just me though. Like, Jax and Sandoval and James like warned Lala, like, yo, you're gonna be new here, you're gonna hang out with James, like, Kristen will ruin your life. Kristen will like find your unborn children and like torture them and then torture you after. Like, she's a crazy person. You need to be safe, you need to be careful. She's got a lot going on in that messy little head of hers. Okay, there's a lot of thoughts and opinions in that girl's little brain there. Okay, what's crazy as you keep going on in the first 8 episodes is that James is more upset about Jax and Kristen hooking up like 2 years prior to that than he is about Tom Sandoval or like anybody else, which is so interesting because the season before, Kristen was always going over to Tom Sandoval's or always being around Tom Sandoval and having like a big deal about it. And James would be like, why are you so obsessed with Tom Sandoval? Like what's going on? But he never really got like too upset about it. Like, but with Jax, he's always bringing it up. He's always talking about it. He's always trying to like get in a fight over it. And it's like, oh, and then anytime they get upset with each other, he's like, oh, why don't you just go fuck Jackson? You guys are such best friends. Why don't you just go hang out? And like Kristen and Jax hang out alone a lot. And they're on camera, so they're not like alone. But like they hang out alone, and James doesn't like that. James is like, why are you hanging out with Jax by yourself? What's that about? How you doing that? I don't understand what's going on. What's that about? And it's just, out of all the people that Kristen's hooked up with, Jax is the one you're upset with. I am convinced that James is the reincarnation of Jax Taylor. Because Jax hates James so much for the same reasons why so many people hated Jax. Like, they're the same person, just different ages. Like, one's the baby version of Jax and one's the grown-ass gorilla man of Jax. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're the same person. And so that's why I feel like at times they get along really well, and then at times they hate each other so much because they are so similar. What's crazy, though, is that future text, James has grown up a lot more. Not saying he's perfect, not saying he's the best, but he's grown up a lot more. And Jax is still right where the fuck he was, being an asshole to women. Like, no difference at all. Kristen just loves to come in and just ruin everything for anybody that crosses her. And so when her and James break up, she takes it upon herself to go talk to Lala privately and be like, hey, so like this is what James was telling me. And Lala's like, okay, let's swap stories. Let's see what we're all talking about here. And Kristen's like, well, James has actually talked about you a lot, and he actually talks a lot of shit about you and calls you a slut. And he's called you that like a billion times in front of me. So I don't know what he's telling you, but he's telling me that you're like this gross girl and you're always wanting to get attention and you're just like sleeping with everybody, and that like you wanted him to cheat on me with you. And she was like, no, like what the fuck? And they go back inside the restaurant when this happens, and Lala is just like, get away from me, like don't talk to me. And James is like, what's going on, what's the problem? It's like, oh, Kristen, of course you get involved, blah, 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 blah. You're gonna listen to Kristen instead of me. And then he gets so mad he ends up calling her a slut. He's like, oh, little slut, oh, little bitch, and starts basically harassing her and being awful. And Lala's just like, oh, okay, so you're proving Kristen right, so that's great. He's like, no, that's not what I mean. I'm sorry, babe. No, that's not what it's about. And he's like, she's like, yeah, it is what it's about, you psycho. So at some point in all of this mess, my timeline's a little messed up, but James and Kristen do, like I said, they do break up. And at one point, James comes and picks up his stuff at Kristen's apartment, and they get into a screaming match with each other. And Kristen's just like, oh, like, you're going to lose your job. You're going to, she says, James, you're going to drink your life into nothing, get fired from Sir, and lose all of your friends, which essentially that literally is what happened, which is kind of crazy. She was 100% right. Like, especially in the next season, like, he basically loses everything and sabotages everything. Him and Lala, honestly, they're like a little gang, and they just like ruin everybody's lives basically, and are horrible to each other. And of course, anybody who's friends with him, fucking Scheana. Scheana's friends with all the bad people on the show. And they're arguing, and James is calling Kristen a slut, and like, oh, you little slut, like, oh, like your stupid t-shirt business, why don't you go fuck Jax, like, you're the worst person ever, you're horrible. Grabs his stuff, and as he's walking out the door, he just hucks a loogie right on Kristen's door. And Kristen's like, I just cleaned that. It's like, you just cleaned your outer door? No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. You didn't clean your door. Stop. Who cleans their door? And so there's just like this spit wad on the door or whatever. It's awful and it's horrible, but it's also really funny. And so he spits on the door and he's like, oh, bye slut. Bye slut. Slut is, again, if he was Woody the cowboy doll and you pulled his drawstring, it would just be slut, 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 24/7. That's all he calls women this whole entire season is slut. So then we get to gay pride. All right. And gay pride is like I told you guys, it's kind of like its own topic in itself. So let's jump over to gay pride. So what happens at Pride is basically James shows up to Pump to DJ. And he's in the tiniest tank top you've ever seen in your entire fucking life. Okay? Very much like, let me show the girls what I'm working with here. Okay? And one of the managers over there, who's super hot, I cannot remember his name, but he's like, did you get mauled by a lion? Like, what the hell's going on? And James has like scratches and bite marks and scars and bruises like all over his body. He's like, oh yeah, you know, just got into it. It's not just doing a little extracurricular activities, you know. And Lisa Vanderpump comes up and is like, what in the hell happened to you? And she's convinced it was Kristen. And he's like, oh no, it's not Kristen. I'm all back together with Kristen. Like, Kristen, well, No. He won't say who it was with though. And so everybody's like, what the fuck? So he finishes his set over at Pump and he comes over to Sir. Okay? So the main characters in this plot are Kristen Doty, James, Lala, Lauren's bartender boyfriend, and essentially Jax. Okay? So he goes over to Sir and he walks in and he starts talking to Lala. And Lala and him basically had agreed in a previous episode that they were going to hang out, maybe hook up, maybe make out, whatever, but they weren't going to be a couple. They're not going to be in a relationship. They're going to do their own thing. You do you, I'll do me, but we'll just kind of like leave it at that. We'll not like, you know, if I want to go hook up with other guys, I will. If you want to hook up with other girls, you can, but just like don't like make it a thing. You know, like don't show it off. Don't be an asshole. Well, James like took that and basically did the opposite and wanted to make Lala jealous and pissed off. So he showed up to Sir with all the scratches and is talking to her. And he's like, "Hey, babe, what's going on? What's going on? Oh, yeah, what's going on, babe?" And she's like, "What's up with all the scratches and shit all over your body? Like, what? Did you get mauled by a bear? Like, what the hell's going on?" He's like, "Oh, but I don't know. Like, I'm just hanging out with Gail, you know? You jealous? You jealous?" And she's just like, "No, I'm not jealous. Like, well, but like, what are you doing? Like, basically, you're making an ass out of Lala because you're a child." And she was like, "Is this like something that you like or whatever?" He's like, "Yeah, you know, like a little scratch, like a little, oh." And Kristen gets involved in it too. And at one point, James looks over at Kristen and is like, "You know what I'm talking about, babe? Remember? You remember? You remember? A little bite, a little scratch, a little. You remember that?" And it's like, who is mauling him like that? It is disgusting. So we find out again that Lauren is one of the, I don't even know what she is. She's one of the front girls. And her and Lala are like buddy or whatever. And so Lala finds out about James doing all this, you know, like scratch and sniff shit or whatever, and starts talking to Lauren about it. And Lauren is basically like consoling Lala and is like, "Get over it. It's totally fine. He's not worth it. He's stupid. Let him do his own shit. Like, you're so much better than that. It's not a big deal." Red flag. You're the one that did it, bitch. Are you kidding me right now? And so they go out into the parking lot. And you see Lauren kind of following James around the restaurant and in the background kind of keeping an eye on him and what he's going to say. And James basically confesses that they had sex for like 7 hours. 7 hours. And they were basically just mauling each other, biting each other, having all that fun stuff. And James and Lala get into a fight behind Sir, and James finally ends up saying, because Lala was like, "Who'd you have sex with? Who'd you have sex with? Like, who did this? Who did this to you?" And he was finally like, "It was the hostess, Lauren. Yeah, you know that girl that you were in there talking about that was consoling you? That's who it was." And Lala just fucking loses it. James rubs it into Lala that Lauren was talking to her all day and being her friend, but actually was hooking up with James. Lauren also has been dating a bartender named Anthony in the restaurant on and off. The undertitle of his name says ex-boyfriend, but everybody says that they're dating, so it's really, really confusing. But basically they're together. And Lala confronts Lauren, and Lauren does not want to talk about it and starts taking her mic off and hiding away from the cameras. And Lala loses her absolute shit. Lauren just starts running all around Sir and tries to get in these like little slot areas, these little pantry areas basically, or like these little, I'm assuming they're little areas that like the waitress has like set up the food, and there's 2 doors on either end and it's small. And she keeps closing them and trying to get into those areas and basically being like, "No, I'm not talking about this. I'm not this. I'm not that." Tries to rip her microphone off. And then, so Lauren is like, "No," like, it's funny how her name's Lauren and Lala's actual name is Lauren. And so Lala is like, "No, you can't do this. Like, what the fuck? Like, no, we're not doing this. This isn't fair." Like, essentially, like, I'm on the TV show. She's on this TV show. She's mic'd up. I'm mic'd up. Fuck that. We're talking about this. So then she runs and finds Anthony and is like, "Hey, Anthony, guess what? You know all those scratch marks on James? Guess who gave those? Lauren did." And he was like, No. That did not happen." And she's like, It did happen. He just told me." So he runs off and goes and tries to find Lauren, who again is in this little like fucking pantry area or whatever. And you can see there's a hole in it. So you can see inside. Like the cameramen are behind Lala. Lala's in front of the door, and then there's a big hole in the door, and you can see Lauren, Anthony, and you kind of can see Scheana in the background too, which I found really interesting. Like, what Scheana's saying? Why did no one mic her ass up so we can hear what was going on? And so Lauren is screaming and is like, do you have a microphone on? Do you have a microphone? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. Do you have a microphone on? And tries to convince Anthony to take his microphone off and shut them off so that way nobody can hear them anymore and there's no audio of the two of them talking. Lala is so pissed. She's banging on the door. She's like, "Get out. It's not fair." Turns to the cameraman, and I'm going to assume producers, and it's like, "It's not fair. I have to do everything. I have to talk about myself, and I have to be honest, but these two don't have to, and they're ruining my life, and blah, 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 blah." So essentially, I think they calmed them down, and we don't see Lauren ever again. And it's like she disappeared off the face of the fucking earth. No clue what happened to this girl. If you guys know, please comment below. I'd love to know what's going on with her now. So she exits the premises, basically. Anthony's no longer about to be seen on the show, I think, either. I don't think I ever see Anthony again. And then Lala comes outside and is fucking furious at James and is so pissed off. So Lala essentially, she essentially decides that she's going to make it perceive that she's gonna go hook up with Jax. So she's talking to Jax, and Jax is all like, yeah. I'm like, are you gonna go to Sandoval's later? And she's like, yeah, I'm going to. And like, do you want to come over? Do you want to hang out? And she's like, yeah, sure, let's go hang out. And they end up leaving together and making James super upset and pissed off. He's like, oh yeah, of course. You know, Jax wants my leftovers. Like, whatever. And they go off. It is perceived that they had sex, but according to both of them, and according to current day both of them, they never hooked up. They were too drunk, they were too messy, and it just couldn't happen. And Jax essentially says that he would have like ruined her or wrecked her. And I'm like, ruined her or wrecked her? What the fuck does that mean? It's funny because like Jax is essentially more Lala's type than James is, but for some reason that little string bean, that little sloppy little piece of spaghetti, I don't know what it is about her. She just likes him. Don't know what that's about. So then we start learning more about James and his mom and his dad. And then James's mom and dad are getting divorced. James's dad was a musical manager for George Michael back in the day, and his mom was a supermodel. They lived in Europe for a long time, kind of traveled all over the world. They met each other in, I think, a cafe, and James's dad was basically essentially like, I'm gonna marry her, and then like followed through and did it. Like, you know, any other story that's ever been made. James and his mom, they have like a very weird relationship, and James is having a really hard time with the divorce because they were together for 24 years, and according to James, or at least the way he's feeling, he feels like it came out of nowhere, but his mom essentially is like, no, it didn't come out of nowhere. Like, come on, like, I want to live my own life. Your dad wants to live his own life. We should be able to do that. And like, so that's why I moved out. And like, this is where I am. And, you know, his mom is like, you know, you need to stop being so sloppy. You need to not worry about getting a girlfriend, having women in your life. It's not that big of a deal. Like when I lived in Paris and I was a model, like all the girls loved to see me get hammered and drunk and loved me to be a mess and make fun of me and laugh at me. And they were always getting at me, and that made me look bad, and I shouldn't have let them do that, and I shouldn't have been that drunk all the time. And he doesn't anymore from what I can see, but he used to have a very toxic relationship with his mom, especially in the seasons that we see him and Raquel together, where she essentially is like wanting money and he's paying for a lot of things, and she's an alcoholic and she has issues. And then she ends up getting sober, which I think helps motivate James to want to get sober too. And that's why I think he also is currently sober as well, because I think his mom and Allie very much are like, you don't need to drink to be a happy person. You're still James, you're still yourself. But it was very, 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 very messy. And I kind of think that Kristen is very similar to the drunk alcoholic version of his mother. And that's where a lot of like the hatred comes. Like there's a lot of women coming at him at once and being negative towards him and ruining his life essentially. And so he has a very toxic relationship with women and with alcohol, and you mix it all together. And you know that is the best bowl of. I also think that James knows something about Kristen and Jax. Like the way that he's so upset about it, it's one of those things where it's just like, did you really just have sex twice? Or did something else happen? I feel like James has a lot of shady secrets that he could be telling. And I kind of wish that he would talk about it, because it's just, I can't get over the fact of how fixated he is on Jax. Like Jax and Kristen, Kristen and Jax. It's just, out of all the guys, like you don't even mention Tom Sandoval. When the whole last season that you were dating, she essentially tried every opportunity to be around Tom Sandoval and show her boobs off to him. Like what? It's just weird that Jax clearly is into so many other women and is dating so many other women and is now dating Brittany, but that's your priority. Like Jax is the one that you're going to get the most upset about and call out the most when it comes to Kristen. It's just an interesting perspective on that, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, honestly, I will die on this hill that I truly think in a really wackadoo world, which we clearly live in, Jax and Kristen are like meant to be together. Like they're each other's like soulmates in a very demented, X-rated, Wiccan type of world. The two of them are meant to be together. And now, essentially, that Jax and Brittany are breaking up, which I think I think they're going to get divorced, guys. I actually think it's going to happen, because let's be for real, Jax is not going to change. If Kristen breaks up with her boyfriend, I just see a world where I'm just like, maybe they will finally get together. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that'll finally happen. And I mean, that essentially is up until episode 8 involving James and Kristen. Obviously, there's intertwinings and there's other things that we'll talk about, like weaving in and out or whatever. But overall, that's pretty much the gist about the two of them and their whole shitty ass crazy relationship up until episode, well, essentially up until episode 9, because I finished episode 8, up until episode 9. Their relationship is just so toxic and so disgusting, and it only gets worse when they're not together, when they're broken up. There's drinks flown, there's screaming, then there's yelling, there's hookups, there's a lot of bad stuff between the two of them. And even to this day, Kristen talks negatively about James all the time and says, oh, we're going to expose him, we're going to show him for who he really is, and blah, 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 blah. And yet, nothing has continued to come out, which is kind of interesting. It's like, okay, if there's so many bad things about him, I genuinely like to know. Because if he's another guy on that show that we need to stop supporting, because essentially he really feels this season on season 11 that he's the only level-headed man on that show. And if that's the situation, then that'd be annoying.
Oh, hey guys, editing Sam here. So unfortunately, the end of this video, the second part of this video, the encryption on it was all fudged up. So I no longer have it anymore. So because of that, I had to end this video early. But before I ended it, I did want to just do a closing for you guys so that way you at least have that and understand what's going on. Part 2 of this video will be going up this coming week. So you should be seeing that. I will be working on that. And you can go follow me on all my social medias. Obviously, if you would like to do that, I would really appreciate it. Like, follow, subscribe, share, do all the things on all my social medias because obviously, the old talker is probably going to get banned fully within the next year. So follow me everywhere so that way you're up to date on what I'm doing, what's going on. I also will be putting down below links to ways that you can support those students that are protesting right now at all colleges and universities. I want to be able to support them and send them love. If you cannot financially help them or you cannot donate anything, the best thing you can do right now is find any content that is out there and like it, share it, save it, and just post it and comment as much as you can, and that'll push it within the algorithm so we can see what's really going on in the world right now, which is one of the reasons why they're getting rid of the old ticker tacker tucker tucker. So that's where I'm at right now. As I always say at the ending of all my videos, please go support your local LGBTQIA businesses. I love you guys so much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.